Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Kerwin Erhan from the Missouri State High School Activities Association.
Good afternoon and welcome to the first general session of the 99th Annual National Federation of State High School Associations Summer Meeting. Chicago is a great sports town, but it may be even better an arts town. When you think about the museums that we went to last night and all the museums they have here in town, the great music that they have, the plays that they have, it's only appropriate that our speaker here today is a mover and shaker in the arts and music industry. Recording artist, performer, producer, inventor, Emmy Award composer, and music education advocate, Mark Wood has spent the past 4 decades basically electrifying the orchestra industry, literally. Wood first turned the string establishment on its head in the early 1970s with his invention of the first solid body electric violin. His company, Wood's Violin, is now the leading manufacturer of electric string instruments worldwide, and he holds patents for the first ever self-supporting violin. A world-renowned performer who rose to fame as a string master and original member of the internationally acclaimed Trans-Siberian Orchestra, Mark has a successful solo career with 7 solo albums as well. His Electrify Your Strings program, now in its 17th year, is an incentive music education experience that boosts student self-esteem and motivation that helps raise money for music education. With more than 100,000 students reached, millions of dollars raised to help school music departments across the United States, and dozens of school orchestra programs saved from the chopping block. Yep, sorry about that. It didn't slide over. Because of his efforts, Mark Wood has proven himself a man of ideas, action, and results. Showing no signs of slowing down, the multifaceted visionary continues to write, perform, record, invent, and inspire. As a matter of fact, Mark Wood is just getting started. So please help me welcome Mr. Mark Wood.
Thank you, guys. Such an honor to be here. If you don't mind, I'm going to have my coffee while I'm waking up. Thank you. This is so awesome. Thank you for the presentations today. It was great. The organization here is wonderful. It's an honor for me to be here and share with you what our journey has been with music. And you've probably figured out I'm a musician, string player, educator, inventor, composer, and my most favorite label is the Grand Disruptor. And I think that that's a key to what we are dealing with in the future with kids, that we must constantly reevaluate what we are doing to engage the kids of tomorrow. I'm an expert when it comes to observing the health and success of our public school music programs throughout the country, and especially string programs. In fact, who here has ever played a musical instrument? You all should be raising your hand, by the way. But we all have something in common. It's obvious we all love music. That's not the difficulty part about that. But what I would love to do is share with you my experiences and observations in the state of our music programs in America right now. It's easy. The power of music is unbelievable. That's what I've been doing my entire life, and it has saved many kids, and myself included, to give us a purpose that is so deep and powerful that nothing comes close to it. In public schools, music transforms a kid from the captain of a football team to the high-thinking tech kid to the lost, disconnected, emotionally challenged kid and the economically challenged kid. We are all welcome and embraced no matter who you are, but what we want to do is we want to combine the efforts of all of that great activity in school. Music and arts teaches us so many things that add tremendous value to a student's success in life. Music teaches empathy, compassion, emotional intelligence. It's an emotionally driven experience. It's a performance environment experience expressing passion, emotion, and discipline. The importance of learning self-expression, a non-verbal language, is paramount in high functioning in our world. Creating our music without words. And I will show you that in a second, how we are able to do that. And music, of course, brings together people and it welcomes diversity, critically important in our schools today. In fact, every successful doctor, scientist, engineer plays a musical instrument. Even Albert Einstein played his violin while searching for his answers through the universe. That is actually true. I have pictures of Einstein playing his violin on my wall. How cool is that? And remember, you can't cry in baseball, sorry, but you can cry with music. And what I want to try to really emphasize today is that the perfect environment is in the educational setting of tomorrow, because it does not exist the way we need it to exist today. The vision that we have tomorrow is called the trifecta triple A. Take out your notepad, here you go. It's the academics, athletics, and the arts, right? Very important. Academics, athletics, and the arts, triple A, that's our future. We have STEM, which we know about, but we must add the arts to create STEAM. The wealth of return from this experience is infinite. Music and arts are paramount to becoming successful in life and be prepared for the world. The 21st century students demand a very personal empowerment with our creative arts. And what I'd love to share with you is I'm involved in several advocacy groups. We go to Washington, D.C., and we literally have to sit with these senators. And of course, they all know me, and they see me perform. Hey, Mark, how you doing? Great. We're going to talk about music. Oh, we love music. Everybody loves music. But how are we going to implement it, support it, and budget it? And I could talk to you for an hour about that challenge. But the difficulty is not in whether we love music. The difficulty is selling it so that we support it, fund it forever. I have scientific data that I want to share with you. And of course, we know that there are hundreds and hundreds of documents and scientific data, brain scans of how music affects people, creativity and art. But mostly music. Music, for some reason, gets to everybody deeply. And this is a scientific data. 2 new studies from the Brain and Creativity Institute at USC show that as little as 2 years of music instruction has multiple benefits. We have found that music instruction accelerates the growth of the auditory pathway to the brain and increases its efficiency. Music instruction also boosts engagement of brain networks that are responsible for decision-making and the ability to focus attention and inhibit impulses. Initial results published last year show that music training accelerates maturity in areas of the brain that are responsible for sound processing, language development, speech perception, and reading skills. Hassal Habibi, who is a professor, the lead author professor of psychology at BCI and USC, said that together these results demonstrate that community music programs such as the Youth Orchestra of Los Angeles can offset some of the negative consequences that low socioeconomic status can have on a child development. Antonio Damasio, professor and director of the Brain Creativity Institute, added, "There has been a long suspicion that music practice has a beneficial effect on human behavior, but this study proves convincingly the effect is real." In another study published 2 weeks ago in the journal PLOS1, the neuroscientists at BCI found that when young musicians were performing an intellectual task, they demonstrated greater engagement of brain activity that is involved with executive function and decision-making. The professor also wrote, "Our findings suggest that musical training is so powerful and is such a great intervention that could help children mature emotionally and intellectually." The last study that I found to be very interesting was done from Harvard Graduate School of Education. If educators want to develop critical, creative thinkers who can set and accomplish their goals and who can use those skills to strengthen their math and reading skills, they may want to take another look inside the music room. For a child to play an instrument, she needs to stick to her goals, pay sustained attention, and be flexible enough to switch back and forth between tempos and styles. Take note, I'm going to show you how that works. These habits draw heavily on the executive function, EF skills, cognitive processes that include problem solving, goal setting, and flexible thinking. A number of studies have found that EF skills contribute largely and hugely to students' success in math and reading. But music doesn't require EF skills, but it may be the pathway to building them. So again, these are wonderful things. And lastly, with this wonderful finding, that's according to the findings by developmental psychologist Nadine Gabb, whose work shows that people who play a musical instrument regularly have higher executive function skills than non-musicians, a significant finding for educators. She writes, "Replacing music programs with reading or math instruction in our nation's schools' curricula is in order to boost standardized test scores may actually lead to deficient skills in other cognitive areas." And when I read that, I really felt that that was a very important point. Yet when budgets are being reviewed at schools, one of the first things to get cut are the music programs, the arts. Cutting funding to music programs is unacceptable. Not only do we struggle with a lack of financial support, we are dealing with several challenges. Distracted and disengaged kids with antiquated music programs. With the acceleration of technology in the last 10 years, we have been passive about looking at updating our music curriculums. We are failing to engage in the 21st century kid. So how do we engage the students of 21st century in the next 10 to 20 years? Well, remember, in the last 5 to 10 years, we have witnessed a massive move forward in our culture with how we all interact, yet we all are more distracted than ever. These kids can multitask like never before seen. The competition for their attention has multiplied tenfold in the last 10 years. Soccer, rocketry classes, chess clubs, social media, internet, tons of activities and choices at school. A kid today is not the same kid as even 10 years ago. We have witnessed a tsunami of change in the way we think, process information, the speed of our thinking, multitasking on a level that we've never seen in our history. Technology has changed everything, disrupting antiquated thinking and learning as we know it. Although the academic classroom of the future is already here, our music programs lag behind the new way of engagement that is happening today. Are we, as leaders in the arts, aggressively addressing the challenge? Are we, as leaders in the arts, moving forward with just regurgitating the same pedagogy of the last 200 years? Now, if you haven't noticed, I'm a string player. And I have a passion for music programs that embrace string playing. And by the way, any instrumental music and vocal programs are equally important and have to be supported. But I'm a string player. So why is an orchestra as valuable as band and choir? And I'd love to show you what it is about, and excuse this instrument. This is not a normal violin, I know. I'll share that with you a little soon. But the mechanics of a bowed stringed instrument like we have in orchestra is astounding. And remember, orchestras and strings have been around for 400 years. And nothing has changed until I came along, the great disruptor. But what a magnificent history and legacy and tradition that we have with strings. But the way the brain processes the bow movement, and just 4 fingers we have on the fingerboard, where a piano has all 10, the bow direction movement stimulates the brain, sorry clarinet players, sorry trumpet players, in such astounding ways, yet the string programs are the first to be cut. In fact, who here has string programs in their school? Raise your hand. 5 people. No. 10 people. It's still, every one of you should have string programs proudly next to the band programs and the choir programs. Yet the string world, it continues to struggle. Less than 15% of public schools even have an orchestra program. How many of these are really vibrant and working? Here's more data for you. Over 70% of middle schoolers drop out of music programs before high school. 85% drop completely after high school, never to play again. The way we drive and motivate students to play something, to play sports, to be interested in science, is they watch something and experience something. They watch their favorite football players. They want to do that. They go out into their yard and throw a football around. They organize sporting events. Music is identical. A kid gets motivated by listening to something. Hey, I want to play just like that person, or I want to play this kind of music. The challenge with string playing music is that classical music, which I play every day, and remember, it's not about this music style is better than this music style. But unfortunately, these kids do not listen to classical music as much as we would like them to. So there's not enough of motivation to get the kid into the classroom. And that is what we're dealing with as a big, big challenge. Even with the most updated scientific data about the importance and success of music experience, we are failing at engaging these students at a cutting-edge, innovative, and creative classroom setting. When the New York Times proclaims, if Mozart was alive today, he would be working at Apple Computers, that says a lot. And it was a wake-up call. Now, the big challenge is how do we teach creativity and share the magic of music in a classroom setting? Well, I'd love to share you my story let's see, where are we on? Oh, okay, let me see if I push this button. I still see my side view. Ah, there we go. I'm going to go back one. And who knows what that is? I know, people under the age of 40 weren't even born during that time. I grew up in the most incredible environment, but I'm just going to fast forward to this cover. The Beatles changed everything for me as a musician. This record changed everything in history about music. They were a British band, but they were completely 100% inspired by American music, and I'm going to get into that also. Now, I grew up in a musical family. My mother was a concert pianist. My father was an artist. My mother had 4 boys in 4 years, and she was determined to have a string quartet in her family, which is amazing. My oldest brother is a well-known violin player in Connecticut. My second oldest brother is a principal cellist of the Syracuse Symphony, and then when I came along, my mother's like, what instrument do you want to play, Mark? I said, I want to play the tuba. Because you can't get more heavy metal than a tuba, right? And luckily, my mother was like, no, you're playing an instrument called the viola, which is a large violin. And my younger brother played violin, so we were the first all-brother string quartet in the 60s and 70s, and we would tour around the country playing Beethoven and Mozart and the great, great classical repertoire. With my mother on piano, we do Brahms piano quintets. It was unbelievable looking back. At the time, I thought every family had a string quartet. We are not unusual. And when you were dealing with a family, my father being an artist, my mother being a musician, that means there was no money. All 4 of us were in one room with 2 bunk beds, and then you look at the picture to the right, the 70s hit, and our hair got longer, and my mother got more nervous about what was going on with Mark and listening to that rock and roll in his room. So when I was 15 years old, I got a full scholarship to a school in New York called the Juilliard School of Music, and it was awesome. I was mentored by a tremendous icon named Leonard Bernstein, and I worked with him, and it was astounding to work with a guy who wrote West Side Story and conducted Mahler. I'm hanging out with that guy. He was fantastic. A record changed my life when I walked in the door. First of all, I was listening to Hendrix, I was listening to Led Zeppelin and Brahms and Beethoven. To me, it all sounded the same. Either I liked it or I didn't like it. Either it moved me or it didn't move me. My 80-year-old Russian viola teacher selected me out of hundreds of viola players that year to train me to be the principal viola player of the New York Philharmonic. Cool, that sounds, I guess I could do that. So there's a record that came out that day, Van Halen's first album. And I was like, oh man, I want to play like Eddie Van Halen. So I go to my 80-year-old Russian viola teacher, I walk in the door and I say, hey man, can you teach me Hendrix and Van Halen? He looked at me, are you kidding me? He almost threw me out the window. That's not done here, that's not music. For 2 years I stayed there enjoying every minute of it because I love music, I love classical music, and I loved learning the art. But it was time for me to move on. I could not sit in the back of a viola section the rest of my life playing other people's music. But it was a great experience because I was in a box. Schools are boxes, as you know. There was a little window in my practice room that I looked out into the dirty, grimy streets of New York City in the 70s. They were bankrupt. But you know what was happening in the 70s, for those of you who remember? Punk music, rock and roll, jazz, Miles Davis was unbelievable music at that time, was exploding while I was in a museum protecting this classical music, which does not need protection, by the way. And my teachers, don't look out the window, Mark. You've got to keep your studies. And I was like, wait a second, there's something happening out there. I left after 2 years, and I moved back into my father's art studio, where they built religious furniture for temples and churches, and I started building electric violins, and that changed everything. What is that? That is my brother's motorcycle, who in that one room with those 2 bunk beds, my brother was building motorcycles, and his sound of the engine, I figured I'd just share this with you. The sound of his motorcycle engine ended up to be the sound of my Viper, and I'll show you how it sounds like a motorcycle. So my brother, who's a great violin player, we all built things, we all integrated our artistic integrity, and it was life-changing being in this incredible family. Here I am at, I think I was 22, and these are the first electric violins that I ever built. Every one of them was built in my dad's wood shop, and they're pretty crazy. It's hard to see, but there's a double-neck violin. There's a violin right in front of me with a human hand with a knife going through it. Don't ask me about that one. My mother was freaked out when she saw that. But this image really shows exactly how I am today and the last 40 years of playing. On the right was the great Jascha Heifetz, the finest violin player in history. Stone, cold, stone, face not moving, completely executing excellence at the highest level ever seen by a human being in history. The gentleman to the left was not Jascha Heifetz. Here's a guy who's burning his guitar, lighting his guitar on fire, and playing his guitar with his teeth and changing the way we think about the guitar, changing perception. And looking back at those 2 pictures, I realized what I was trying to do is keep the wonderful discipline that classical music has given me, the wonderful striving for superior excellence with crash and burn thinking. On the spot, figuring out creative ways to do things and express myself. So that changed everything. And then, as I was going through my career, we formed a band called the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And this is us high-flying. I think this is in Cleveland, at the end of one. Is that a great picture? We're literally 4 feet in the air. We jump up a lot. We formed the has anybody seen us at all? Cool. I'm sorry, I don't play Christmas music in June. Sorry. I could barely do it in December, but we're not going to do that in June. But the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, we formed that, 25 years ago at the kitchen of the producer in Brooklyn. And we're really a greasy rock band from Brooklyn with a really cool name. The first tour we went out, the audience thought we were from Russia, and half the audience would leave. And then we started to really gain momentum, and it changed history because we combined, my most favorite thing to do is mashing classical music with rock. And then you fast forward to the way it is now. We've got 3 bands, we're traveling around the country. We generate millions of dollars. But there was a life-changing moment for me. About 20 years ago, a teacher came up to me at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame where we were performing. And she says, "Mark, can you put together a rock orchestra for me at my high school?" And after Juilliard, I just did not want to go back into a school ever again. It was just not the place for me. The music programs were not interesting. The string programs were boring. It was just, I didn't want to be part of that. I went to her school. We built instruments with these kids, and I've never had such an epiphany and a moment of aha. This is where not only I need to be, but every professional scientist, actor, musician, poet, athlete, everybody must go to high schools and mentor. I worked with these kids for a full year. They flew me out once a month and trained them. I had no idea what to do, but I saw high school kids jumping when I said jump. I saw them like that, explaining, looking with curiosity and creativity. Once we hit college, university level, and symphony orchestra, they're gone, not interested in what I'm doing. But the high schoolers, they're in that wonderful period of sort of floating. They're not sure what they're doing. So someone like me coming in saying, okay, we need you to do this, we need you to move this way and do it this way, we need to work on this music, I need you to improvise here, these are new instruments, what do you think? And it blew my mind. So this was really a changing part of my life. This is another great picture of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. So that's just a brief history of what I've been doing. And it's really, really changed my life. But what I have found in the last 20 years, and my program's called Electrify Your Strings, what I found that the most important element in what we do is called selling the vision. How do we sell it? How does a teacher, especially a string teacher, walk up to the principal and say, hey, we need a couple $100 more for another cello, or a new piece of equipment or something? It's the hardest thing for a teacher to do is sell. How do we sell? So what we're trying to do is encourage the teachers, retrain them to communicate better. And this is what it is. And I wanted to come up with a great phrase, and it was called the mechanics of the astonishing beauty and magic of music making, and that's our philosophy. Music is astounding. It's not just fun to listen to. And by the way, you guys all know you cannot play football by just watching it on TV. You got to get in there and do it. And same thing with music. The kids watch me play, and it's like, no, 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 no. I'm an Olympic swimming coach. At some point, you got to jump in the water, and we got to swim. So the sell here is easy. Magic, music, and that drives everything. I also want to start sharing with you something called improvising and how the mechanics of the violin work. And I'm so excited about showing you, because what I find that 99% of music classrooms in America do not teach an American technique, and it's called improvising. And improvisation changes everything in a kid's brain, because we are so used to performing the story of Mozart, the story of Beethoven. We want these kids to tell us their story, and that's what American music does. So I can play for you right now. Let me check if I'm in. Oh, yeah. By the way, if you're interested, this is an instrument that the first Viper, this is a Viper. Everybody from Lindsey Sterling to Mark O'Connor plays them. It has the entire orchestra in one instrument. It has violin, viola, cello, and bass. I've got the entire orchestra in one instrument. I built the first 4-string, the first 5-string, the first 6-string, and then I discovered the 7-string, and it changed my life. Improvising, when I walk into a classroom of kids, the first thing I do is I must show them what it is that we expect of them in return. And improvising, I'm going to play for about 30 seconds music that has never been heard before, music that I've never played before. I'm going to play you exactly how I feel right now and see what you think. And I want you to tell me what the color is and what the story is. When we go into classrooms, we have the kids think about music as story without words. Think about music as arcs and color. So let me see what I can come up with here. And by the way, with the technology, I can show you too. Let me show you the devices that I'm using. This is called echo, and I can work on the echo with rhythmically. So let me play 30 seconds for you, and I want you to close your eyes and envision what the story is that I'm communicating to you. And by the way, remember, this has never been done before, this music, and never, if you say, Mark, can you play that again? I could never remember what I just did. To give you a little bit of an idea of what we can do with music. So we spend the time with the kids for that first moment of my programs really talking about the power of music. And what I want to share with you right now is the solution to the 21st century music laboratory. And by the way, these are not classrooms. Schools have laboratories for us to explore and be creative in. Electrify Your Symphony, which embraces orchestra, choir, and band. And if you don't mind, I'd love to play that first video for you guys. And while it's playing, I can explain to you what we're doing. So EYS is a 2 to 3 day music experience, embracing 21st century thinking and performance-based team effort. For 8 months every year, we travel across the country and work directly with the teachers, students, parents, and communities and work together to engage the kid of tomorrow. In the last 10 years, we've generated millions of dollars through ticket sales and raffling off of my violins, all of which go right into the string program or choir or band program. Is that a great picture? My favorite picture. Thank you. So we walk in to the first day. They've never met me. They've only seen videos of me. And I love that first moment. I insist they all have name tags, and they forget they even have them, so I can directly communicate to them with their name. And they're sitting behind the music stand in chairs like a traditional orchestra. And we warm them up a little bit, and they look disengaged. I don't know if you know what the standard string player. Oh, what time is it? Oh, I don't know. Forgive me. That is the truth. And what we do is we say, okay, kids, let's get rid of these music stands. Let's get rid of the chairs. We're standing up, and we're going to talk about how music is a language, and we're going to do something called call and response. I've developed these drills just like, believe it or not, sports drills. Every day you do these drills back and forth to strengthen what it is that we need to strengthen. I work with loops and drones and technology, and we stand up and we move to music. When people say, Mark, what is the most challenging thing in a music program? How do you get a kid to feel and emote emotion? It's sort of easier as a singer because we're connected with our voice so directly, but with an instrument, it's much more difficult because we are training them indirectly the wrong way. So the way I do it is we get drum loops on hip-hop grooves and a drone. Two things, rhythm and pitch, are the most important thing in music. So we have them moving. So we're having them moving like this to the rhythm, and I'm working them as they move. The second thing is eye contact. They must look at me in the eye when they play. Do not look at the floor. Don't look at the ceiling. Who are you communicating to? In fact, who is the most important person in this room? They have no clue. It's you guys, actually. It's the audience. Their job as students of music and the nonverbal language skill is to communicate to you so that you feel what I feel. Without emotion, music is paper. Music is wallpaper. Music is meaningless. How do you get a middle schooler and a high schooler? And by the way, you know that these kids are so ramped up emotionally. That's the time when they are exploding with emotion and drama and all sorts of craziness. What a perfect opportunity to get them to play music. And that's where we succeed. So it's a 2-day thing. We engage hundreds of thousands of kids, parents, and teachers, all the ticket sales, and we raffle off one of my violins that I sign at the end of the night, which generates thousands of dollars. Year after year, we have rejuvenated these great music programs. We have over 10 artist mentors for band, choir, and orchestra. And we fly into your town to transform it. Our EYS mission is to empower and help reevaluate our system of teaching creativity, self-expression, and emotional intelligence. Welcome to the new music world order. Accelerated learning through technology, improvising, and American styles. That's the last thing I want to chat with you and share with you is the fact that this country has developed incredible things. First, technology. We got to plug in using technology to accelerate music, computers, iDevices, smartphones, looping, and recording. Improvising, I just showed you how important that is. Using your listening skills as a primary task in addition to notational reading. We got to learn to read, but remember, we learn to speak many years before we learn to read. Music must be taught that way too. It must be something that you're using your ear for. We see brain scans of improvising musicians and brain activity. So improvising is critically important. American styles. We want to welcome diversity and different cultures into our classroom. Man, I can't tell you how important that is for our future. Everybody has something to contribute to music with their culture. Indian music, African music, American music, fiddling. In this country alone, we have developed over a half a dozen styles we have invented. We have rock and roll, blues, jazz, hip hop, R&B, country music, and bluegrass. It's time we fully integrate our own music into the classroom. And one of our finest and most respected musicians of today actually are not Juilliard trained. Most cannot read or write music, but they have created the most breathtaking music since Mozart's time. Billy Joel, Paul McCartney, Miles Davis, they can't read or write music, but they have changed musical history. And I think that that's so important that we do not push that aside. Now, the challenge over the next 50 years is the way we teach and our techniques of pedagogy that are more relevant and engaging than ever. Time for an upgrade. Remember, we do not remove our wonderful classical heritage, but we must innovate on a level of how Steve Jobs looked at the antiquated computer industry and made history with Apple, the great disruptor. Just like the mighty and beautiful 125-year-old Brooklyn Bridge in New York 20 years ago was falling apart. Now, after investing tremendous energy and resources and love, she stands tall and strong. We must do that. What I'd like to do is wrap it up with one of the songs, and I want you all guys to be standing up and dancing, by the way, so get your dancing shoes on. But what we're doing right now is we're getting better training at university level. I partnered with the Ohio State University with Dr. Bob Gillespie in a new way of teaching music ed. This is just the beginning. If we don't mind, we did something at Sioux Falls. Let's run that last video and I'll play for you. This is an outstanding experience.
Introduce to you Mr. Mark Wood.
So check it out. 3,000 young musicians, band, orchestra, and choir. Sold out arena, 11,000 seats sold out in Sioux Falls. It was incredible. We are now editing this for the a PBS special to get the message out. So you get an idea, this is a great moment. This is just so important that we get this message out to the communities about bringing kids together with music. You know what, guys, we're gonna cut this short because I know we're running out of time. I'm gonna play one thing for you. Thanks, guys. But in closing, I want to share a testimonial from a parent that we received just a few weeks ago. I just want to thank you so much for today. My son, Tristan, is in the 6th grade orchestra and is on the autism spectrum Today is his 12th birthday. When he found out that the concert would be today, he insisted that we reschedule his birthday party from today until tomorrow. He would rather spend time with his orchestra and this once-in-a-lifetime experience with you rather than celebrate his own birthday. You're incredibly inspiring to these young kids, and I appreciate your kind words and passion for giving back to the youth of America. That's where it's all about. I'm going to play a little bit for you guys, but what I'd love to do is I want everybody on their feet and dancing on this one. Let's get the house lights up, guys. This is the great Aaron Copland. I want you guys dancing. Here we go. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Oh, we got to get that mic on.
Outstanding. Thank you, Mark, for sharing your passion for music and highlighting the value, that music can have for the holistic development and engagement of our students. Bottom line, music matters. How about another round of applause for Mark? Little housekeeping, the Bag-O tournament begins immediately following this down on the 5th floor in the Chicago Ballroom. Also, the information desk is open at 8:30 tomorrow. Second general session at 9 a.m. The first general session is now adjourned. Thank you all.